Now this is where things start getting a little bit philosophical, but I think it is necessary to continue to bring cohesion to the chaos found within everything. Religion has done this for millennia, trying to bring meaning to everything with surprisingly little to show for it, short of social identification, cultural development, and implied order being commanded from the creators by human narcissists. So I figured I'd give reason, supplemented by verifiable knowledge, a shot. If this is the first video of mine you are watching, there's 4 parts with their own videos prior to this one in my Dimensionalism 1.0 playlist, and although watching them first is not completely necessary to understand the arguments presented in this video, as I give brief review of what is needed here, they are there for your viewing pleasure or displeasure. So continue viewing at your own discretion, and always remember to think for yourself. To my knowledge, I am the first person to bring this fundamental aspect of reality into a relatively clear picture for the inquiring mind to ponder by defining some of the undefined/indeterminate math problems as part 1 went into further detail in. Specifically, what we were talking about last time is the idea of an infinite pit of nothingness, 0, being divided by an infinite pit of nothingness, 0, being able to spit out everything, because of the division property of equivalence, where 0 times anything equals 0. So if you just removed the 0 from the side that is being multiplied by everything and remove it on the other side, you would get 0 divided by 0 equals everything. In part 2, we were able to conclude that we live in a 10-dimensional plane of existence with 4 dimension types: mass, electric current, length, and time. And I'll name all 10 of these quantum fields here: mass, electric, magnetic, height, width, depth, time, variable present, variable eternal, and stable physics, with a 0-dimensional quantitative measurements. Within those 10 dimensions, we should be able to measure everything in our reality. A 4th time dimension's necessity, however, to our structured reality would be restricted to coordinating rules on how things can causally affect each other, and any significant variation in physics would change how we would exist, possibly even preventing us from existing, and would require a 5th time dimension for us to see these changes. In essence, we may very well never be able to directly observe a different universe with different underlying physics. If the stable physics dimension is a line that encompasses different ways of allowing physical phenomena to causally affect each other, and if our fundamental constants are in fact constant, our universe would be maintained at a single point on this stable physics line, because if we moved along that line, it wouldn't be stable anymore. Of course, this isn't that hard to imagine, since our observation of time are currently restricted to a single timeline, and if we change the perspective of this timeline, the entirety of it looks like a single point. But let's entertain the notion of there being creators of our particular universe for a bit. If we are living in a simulation, or more realistically a created subspace, the stability of our physics would make just as much sense in this instance. If we were living in a determined and controlled amount of space, the stable physics dimension would be useful for inputting data to simulate conditions similar to how the quote-unquote real world's physics would operate from our point of view. It should be noted that I can see that it may be possible for universes of varying physics to exist, perhaps along a 5th time dimension to be calculated simultaneously alongside ours within everything. But because this may be possible, I would like to make a point to show that this isn't the case for us in our universe, to show that our universe is limited to stable physics. The fundamental constants that I spend a good amount of time researching and contemplating on are inexplicably interlocked with each other. This picture here shows the relationships the fundamental constants have with other fundamental constants, and how each constant can be calculated as a function of other constants. I will explain what is going on in detail in the final Intro to Dimensionalism paper I will link in the final video of this series, but all you need to know for now is that I got these connections from commonly accepted equations that define each of the fundamental constants. For example, this equation for the speed of light being the speed of light is equal to 1 over the square root of the magnetic constant times the electric constant would connect C, mu naught, and epsilon naught up here. And I think it's right here, here, and here. That's where those three connections come from. This implies that changing the value of c here would definitely change one, or most likely both, the values of mu naught and epsilon naught. To continue on with my proposition, I propose that the values of all of these fundamental constants in our universe being constant suggest a real likelihood that we are living in a simulation, a subspace of the true space, or the true everything. Within the true everything, these constants should often show these two things. Real/true/original space would not have any limits set on the variability of each of their manifestations of the fundamental constants. In other words, their fundamental constants would be allowed to vary over time. It would make real/true/original space calculate the changes in the physical changes in an additional time dimension, or the causal effects of changing physics at every point in time. And premise 2 is real/true/original space would be calculating a near infinite number of variables within a near infinite number of dimensions to actually make everything, which would result in universes with 5 time dimensions or more happen a lot more frequently than just the 4 or less that we see. Premise 3 is our fundamental constants do not vary, hence their constancy. The implied odds of observing a universe where the variables did not move as opposed to observing the variables move even a little bit is close to 0. Premise 4. Our space has a relatively small number of dimensions. The implied odds of living in a low-level dimension universe, any universe having between 1 and 15 dimensions, versus living in a, say, 100 or 1,000 dimensional universe, is close to 0. Conclusion 1a. Either the fundamental constants are not constant and will vary over greater spans of time. Conclusion 1b is the universe we observe got really lucky within the real/true/original space to be endowed with stable physics. Or conclusion C1c, we do not live in real/true/original space. And conclusion 2 is assuming that the option that we don't live in real space, either someone, someone's, something, or somethings caused our particular universe to operate with stable physics in a low-number dimensional hypersphere. Identity and motivations of the assumed creators are unknown. Ancestor simulations or a power generator from our stars and black holes are two reasonable hypotheses. And now for the everything from nothing route to rationally suggest that we may very well live in a simulation. Premise 1 is 0 divided by 0 equals everything. Premise 2 is, within everything, variables in physics should regularly vary to effectively cause their causal changes on the interactions within reality. Premise 3 is, our physics are not variable, they appear to be constant. And the conclusion from those premises is, our universe is not a part of the original equation of everything where 0 divided by 0 equals everything, but one of m times e to the second times l to the third times t to the fourth, dimensions with potential for infinity, divided by 0 equals everything. Everything that the constraints given in the numerator are capable of producing. So it's not just infinity, it's infinity that is given by those 4 dimension types. I know some of you may be wary of the premises, as the crux of the premises are heavily reliant on shoulds rather than on statements of known fact. But I will say again that the possibilities of the universe's first cause are not constrained to absolutely nothing, and that is what these arguments are for. I'll tackle some low-hanging rebuttal fruit to further clarify the points I am trying to make. Like, I can imagine one person rebuttaling for the first argument, prove that the true space would often have variations in their fundamental constants. Or even more simply for the second approach, you can't divide by 0. Moron. My response to the first rebuttal would be, nobody could ever definitively prove that by observation. That is like me asking you to prove that the Planck length really is the smallest meaningful increment of space when something like half the Planck length is a thing that rationally exists and is useful in explaining fractional length. I'm just saying that the odds of living in the unrestrained and chaotic 0 divided by 0 equals everything universe and have the fundamental constants line up just right and stay constant over the vast eons of time is a lot less likely than living within a controlled and simulated environment with the physics being input for consistency over the variable eternal dimension. So what I'm saying is that you actually have three options. You can either admit that our physics actually do vary over time, you could admit that our universe is actually really freaking lucky, or our physics were caused by creators. Pick your poison. To make what I just said clear, even though we can rationally hedge our bets that we are living in a simulation, our day-to-day lives and whatever subjective meaning you decide to give your life are just as meaningful here in the simulation as they are in the other versions of us that exist within the set of the true everything. And for the rebuttal to the second argument, I could just as easily throw it back. Yes, you can. Yes, you can divide by zero. I just did. Use your brain, not your calculator. Given the premises stated earlier, I should at least tackle two reasonable points of inquiry. One, what is actually calculating everything? And two, could any specific God be put in place of the creators? Now, what is actually calculating everything? I don't know. However, I would suggest that mathematically, zero the infinite appears to be a likely candidate. But claiming this as an absolute fact would cause me to be guilty of a zero of the gaps fallacy, which is similar to the God of the gaps fallacy. I don't want to be guilty of the zero of the gaps fallacy, so I will not say that it is definitely zero the infinite that is calculating everything. But even though I don't know, as I would agnostically proclaim in this proposal, within the vast expanse of the true everything, the entire Omegaverse is, in this theory, contained within a zero-dimensional point. So maybe dimensionalism shouldn't exactly be called a grand unified theory of everything, and should more amusingly be called a grand unified theory of nothing. Not saying that what I'm saying amounts to nothing, but that everything comes from nothing, ultimately. And with that being said, I should answer the second point of inquiry. This, what I just showed, is not proof of the existence of God, gods, or anything supernatural. In fact, I would argue that 0 divided by 0 equals everything would prove that there is no need for a supreme God over the highest dimension, as everything can just as well come from nothing as being caused by a God. All this proves is that something, almost certainly mortals just like us, or some sort of machine, caused our reality to begin operation. The creator could be alive, dead, monstrous, heavenly, or possibly even living within a simulation themselves. We don't know. So please do not assume knowledge where there is none. You can believe what you want about the creator, or even believe that our universe is already within the chaotic version of everything with no creator above the 10 dimensions. You can go your own way. On that note, let us go forward as a species, even if we have to go our own separate ways in thought or in location. And if you would like to go the way of endorsing critical thought and semi-skeptical notion slaying, please do us a giddy and click on those like and subscribe buttons. We've got a notion full of sea creatures, also ready to take myself and each other on cordially and rationally. There's only 25 subscribers as I upload this video, so every additional one right now would be extra gidifying. So thank you for the extra gidifyingness that you do. Next time I'm going to explain the dimensions in terms that I hope is so easy to understand, I could understand it. But until next time, kumbaya, mother duckers.